John chapter 13. It says before the Passover festival, Jesus, this is verse 1, Jesus knew his hour had come to depart from this world to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Now, when it was time for supper, the devil had already put into the heart of Judas, Simon Iscariot's son, to betray him. Jesus knew that the Father had given everything into his hands, that he had come from God, and that he was going back to God. It just kind of sets up the story. So this is it. Point being, this is it. This is the Last Supper. This is the final moment. This is like everything is about to change for the disciples. I mean, Jesus already knew what was going to happen. He knew that, and it says that. He knew the hour had come. Okay, this is the climax. This is why the cross. This is why I'm here. The disciples, he tried to explain, and they kind of halfway got it sometimes. It really didn't. Just like us, we wouldn't have either. But their lives are about to change forever. In just a few hours, their leader is going to be ripped out of their hands, going to be taken into a false court, going to be charged, going to be put to death on the cross in a gruesome way. He's going to rise from the dead 3 days later. A few days later after that, the Holy Spirit is going to come on them, and then they are on beginning the foundation of the church that we enjoy to this day, right? So like everything changes. This is like the innocence time of their life. Everything's great. We're following Jesus, and everything's about to change. So this is one of Jesus' last opportunities to guide them into the character and the kind of people, the kind of men he wants them to be as future leaders in this church that's going to be born in just a few days now. It's time for the annual Passover meal. He had already sent John and Peter ahead to prepare for the meal. That's been done. The food's cooked. Everything's prepared. Table's set. Jesus and his disciples enter the room, and they see a towel and a water basin in the corner, but no one there to wash their feet, which would be highly unusual. I mean, us, we're like, well, why would there be? But in their culture, it'd be highly unusual. This is just a normal part of the day for the first century Middle Eastern people. It'd be maybe kind of like, not really a fair comparison, but it'd be like us going into a public restroom, doing the stuff, and then we go out and there's no sink, there's no soap, there's no water, there's nothing. We're like, you have a moment of like, I don't know what to do, and then you kind of walk off and pretend like you washed your hands or something. That's kind of what's going on here. Washing of feet was just a normal hygiene thing in their time. It was the main mode of transportation was walking, and included sharing the roads with animals. The shoe of choice is like a sandal, open sandal thing. So after a long day of out doing what you do, the work, whatever it is you're doing, a person's feet would be tired, but they'd also be very, very dirty, dusty from the trails, from the walking around, mixed with droppings from animals. And for us, like modern day city folks, like we're kind of like, ew, like what? Ew. I mean, it's kind of like foreign idea to me. The only animal droppings I worry about is like if a dog did something and someone didn't pick it up, or it's just not very common in our world. Or if you go to the state fair and you're walking around the agricultural building, you're like, just watch where you're going. You kind of keep an eye down. So it's not like our normal part of our day, but it was normal every day for them, for sure. This past October, we took a team to Zimbabwe. We go every year to Zimbabwe to do some mission work there. We took a team. We were baptizing a number of people in this cow trough in I think we have that, in big old cow trough there. We had like 20 some baptisms going on, and all these folks are standing around the church. We came in and they all walked down and they're watching and kind of celebrating and everything that's going on, and us Americans, city folks, we're all kind of like walking around because we're in a cow field, right? We're like, okay, don't step there. What's that? Don't step there. So we're kind of being careful. They're just walking around. Matter of fact, at one point, I looked down and a bunch of the students there were like playing soccer with a cow. And I'm going like, oh, just not what I would, it's just not what would be on my radar to do. A couple of years ago, I couldn't have told you this until like maybe even this morning. I thought, hey, I should find a picture. This is from baptisms at a river last year, but this is 22. And I kind of threw a couple pictures together, but it's the same spot. And they're looking for hippos and alligators and everything to make sure no one's going to die when they're getting baptized. But if you look all around, there's all kinds of animal droppings. Even the dude playing the djembe, they're just sitting right next to something there. And I hadn't noticed that before, and they didn't either. It's just part of, like, point being, it's just part of life to them. We get ooh and grows and ooh, it's a thing, and they just walk around. They don't walk in it, but it might. They might play soccer with it. I mean, it's just what it is, all right? So they don't get freaked out about it like we do. It's just part of their normal day. But then they go home and they wash their hands and wash their feet, and before they do their meal, and that's part of the normal hygiene of their world. At the time of Jesus, their culture devised a custom that when you went to someone's house or you went to some important event or whatever, a special event of some kind, a gesture of hospitality was that the host would arrange to make sure someone was there to wash your feet. And the person who did this, because of the nature of the job, it was always the lowest of the totem pole, right? It was the lowest ranking person in the room. If they have a number of servants, it was the lowest ranking servant, or slaves in that setting, the lowest ranking slave. Maybe the least favorite wife, Certainly not the man of the house. That was not his job. He did not do that, right? Certainly not if there happened to be a dignitary in the area. Certainly that guy wouldn't be the one doing the feet washing. It just wouldn't. So I kind of have to wonder what's going through the mind of the disciples as they enter into the room. It's time for the Passover feast, big holy day of the year, right? I mean, it's the big one, right? It's like amazing things. It's just high holy day, right? They're getting ready to celebrate this feast, the Passover feast, and they're all staring at each other because there's no one there to wash their feet. And they're all probably thinking, we don't know, it doesn't tell us, but they're probably thinking, well, who's going to wash my feet? What's going on? Where are the women? Where are the servants? Who planned this thing, I mean, what's going on here? I'm guessing the very last thing any of them was thinking was, hey, maybe I should go ahead and wash the guy's feet here. Nobody thought that. They didn't even think, hey, maybe I should wash my own feet. I'm a big boy. I can handle that. Nope. I doubt that was even part, because it just wasn't how they did things. And as you recall, the most common argument that happened among the disciples that they had with one another was, who's the greatest? I want to be the greatest. I want to be the one who sticks out. I want the place of leadership when the kingdom is established. I want to be the big dog. Well, the big dog doesn't wash feet. So they're all like, who's going to do it? What's going to happen here? I don't know. I don't know how to proceed. So they're all staring at the wall. So verse 4 tells us, so he got up from supper, laid aside his outer clothing. This is Jesus, right? He got up from supper, laid aside his outer clothing, took a towel, tied it around himself. Next he poured water into a basin, began to wash his disciples' feet, and dry them with the towel he tied around him. He came to Simon Peter, who asked him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Like what? And Jesus answered him, what I'm doing you don't realize now, but afterward you'll understand. And Peter's like, oh, no, you'll never wash. No, you're not you. You're not that. You are above this. You'll never wash my feet, Peter said. Jesus replied, if I don't wash you, you have no part of me. In other words, sit down and be quiet, Peter. I got something going on here, right? Simon Peter said to him, Lord, not only my feet, but also my hands and my head. And Jesus is like, didn't I tell you to be quiet, right? Verse 10, the one who's bathed, Jesus told him, doesn't need to wash anything except his feet. But he is completely clean. You are clean, but not all of you. For he knew who would betray him. This is why I said, not all of you are clean. Isn't it amazing he also washed Judas's feet? I mean, we like be selective of who, we help and serve. And he's like, yeah, this guy's about to turn me into my death. I'm going to wash his feet. He knew exactly what's going on. What you have here is a room full of very healthy, capable, able men standing around waiting for someone else to take care of a problem they could easily have fixed on their own. That's embarrassing. I mean, from this perspective, a couple thousand years later, looking back, it's like, what? How ridiculous is this? And with no one stepping forward, you've got Jesus, the Son of the Most High God. Jesus, the one who commands the wind and the waves, and they obey him because it's him saying, be calm, be still. This Jesus who instructed dead people to rise from the dead, and they did. The one who in the very beginning of time said, "Let there be light," and there was. This Jesus takes off his outer garment, wraps a towel around his waist, pours water in the basin, and does the most menial task imaginable to the people in that room. This is a big learning experience for these guys. And what Jesus says next is the lesson he wanted them to get. He wasn't just doing a cool little illustration thing like, oh, they'll talk about this someday. It's bigger than that. He wanted them to learn from this experience because, like I said, their world's about to change. Everything's about to be thrown upside down. They're going full throttle in some major life change, and he wants this to stick. He says in verse 12, when Jesus had washed their feet and put on his outer clothing, he reclined again and said to them, "Do you know what I've done for you?" I mean, do you know what just happened here, guys? You call me teacher and Lord, and you're speaking rightly, since that's what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you should do just as I have done for you. Truly I tell you, a servant is not greater than his master, and a messenger is not greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. What's his big take home? He says, I have given you an example that you should do just as I have done for you. I want you to remember this. Remember this moment. Remember staring at the wall, wondering, and remember it could have been you. And remember, any one of you could have said, hey, I'll take that. I got it. But you chose not to. So the Son of God did it for you. And that's okay. Point being, you do it next time. You be the one who steps forward next time. Don't be the guy staring at the wall, wondering who's going to serve you. Roll up your sleeves and get busy and do something. Right? What I want to do is just talk about this life of serving. That Jesus has called us to a life of serving. I mean, it's not just for special people or people who get paid or people who stick out from the rest. It's for everybody, for every Christian. We are not called to a life of luxury. We are called to a life of being servants, not up to a life of being served. We are called to a life of figuratively wrapping a towel around our waist, washing dirty, filthy, smelly, gross-looking feet with joy. So I want to take the remainder of our time this morning and talk about 3 ways to develop this life of serving people that comes from this story that we get from Jesus, this experience that he gave his guys. 3 ways to develop a life of serving people. And honestly, it has to be developed in all of us. This doesn't come naturally because naturally we are born into a world where we are completely served. I mean, you know how that works, right? I go to the bathroom and someone changes my diaper for me when you're a baby, right? And I'm hungry and someone feeds me, and I wake up in the morning and they pick out my clothes, they change my clothes, they put them on me. I just lay there and let them serve me. And the rest of our life, we kind of look back to that moment and say, I just wish someone would feed me. You know, I go to a restaurant, I just want someone to serve me. And if they don't serve me the way I like, I'm going to be really angry because, by golly, I deserve it. You know, we're taught that since we're infants. We want people to bend over backwards for us. We want people to give us room in traffic. We want people, all this stuff, right? You know. And so we have to learn and grow and develop away from that to become a servant rather than one who wants to be served all the time. The first thing, this is what Jesus did, is you look for specific needs. That's how we reverse the trend that we're born with, that we're trained with as little children. Look for specific needs. The disciples needed their feet washed, and there's no one to do it for them. So there's a need. It's an obvious need in the room there. At this particular point, they didn't need a prayer. I mean, prayer is good. That's good. Pray for people, but that's not what they needed. They needed their feet washed. You know? At this particular moment, they didn't need a lecture about how to keep their feet clean. Hey, if you didn't step in that stuff, you wouldn't have a problem. Well, okay, that's true, but my feet are dirty, and it's time for the Passover. I have this need. I need to get my feet washed. They just needed them washed. Jesus recognizes this, and he washes their feet. He saw their need, and he filled it. That's what we need to learn to do, put on that radar of looking for needs of the people around us and what we can do to help them. So every couple of weeks we go out and do homeless outreach and serve the homeless community. And man, I tell you what, you go out there and I would love to fix everything for them, I would love to have that little easy button and say, oh man, you're looking for a house? There you go. I got you a house. You need a whole new wardrobe? All right, there you go. You need a job? There you go. I'd love to fix everything for them. It'd be wonderful. I could give them a home, but not all of them want a home. They're happy. Some of them are perfectly content in a tent by the river. That's just what they want. That's on them. They can do, but that's okay. Who am I to say otherwise? I'd love to give them the job. Some don't want a job. So we have to look at what do they need at the moment. Because they do have needs. It's obvious they have some needs. Well, you know what they need is a meal. Maybe they haven't eaten for a couple of days. But what they need are some basic supplies. Little toiletries and the things that we give. So that's what we do. We supply the basic needs. It was kind of fun this Christmas. We did the extra treat. We did stockings. It was a blast. For those of you who are with us, you know what we're talking about. Just watching their eyes light up like, what? A stocking? Like little treats in it? Little candies and stuff? And fun stuff? It was pretty cool. And on the way home, we had a few left over, so we'd stop and saw homeless people. And Richard was driving. He'd pull over, open the door, and someone would run out and give him a stocking. And they're like, whoa! I mean, from man, this is kind of a bad time of year to like, wow, so that's cool. It was just feeling on the, hey, we see you, right? We understand, and we want you to know God loves you. And so in the name of Jesus here, just have a little treat, along with the other supplies and stuff too. You look for specific needs. Look for specific needs. And I think that all starts by learning to look away to move away from staring at the walls. You walk in the room, it's Passover, no one's there, so I'm just like, kind of checked out a little bit. You've got to engage a little bit. Rather than wondering who's going to wash my feet, you want to become the person looking for people who need their feet washed. That's a transition that takes place in your heart, but in your head as well. Becoming a person looking for that need. We spent a number of years in schools before we moved into this fine auto warehouse parts store and converted it into a church building. But I probably spent 12 years doing load in and load out at the area schools, middle school, high school, all the schools in town, basically Beaver Creek, did them all as they were doing construction. And we had a continual need for volunteers because you had 2 trailers, all these chairs we brought in our own staging, which we used on Christmas Eve, put up the curtains, we did all this stuff, right, to make it look like a church, even though we were in a school building. So it took a lot of people to do that. So there was a continual need, the chairs, the kids area, the cafe, all this stuff, all the things we do. And one time in one of our staff meetings, someone said, man, what if we don't stack the chairs this week? What if we just don't unstack? What if we don't set them up, And I mean, I was like, they called me the chair Nazi because we had all these boards. We called him Woodchuck, call him Chuck, and he would we had all the space, and we still have them, by the way. And everything had to be perfect, What if 1 week we just take them off and we just set them in the gym floor and walk away and see what happens? And I was like, I kind of resisted. I'm like, oh God, and I'm like, come on, let's do it. Okay, let's do it. It was hilarious, honestly. Because some people they got mad. Some people got angry. Can't you see my feet are dirty? Grab your own chair. No. We may have lost people over it. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. It's like, really? You can't pick up your own chair and set it down? It was hilarious. So point was definitely made. No one had unstacked the chairs for them that day. Most people got the point. It was all played with, okay, we get it, okay, we'll take a week of setup, and they kind of helped with that whole thing. But man, it's tough to transition from being a servee to a server. And it's a selfish thing that we all have. So we all fight that. But look for specific needs. Number 2, approach serving with humility. Jesus did not see the washing of feet as something that was below him. If anyone could see any menial task as something below him, it would be Jesus. I mean, he could be like, no. I sit on a throne in heaven. Really? You want me to wash no. But he didn't. He did not see that as something that was below him. I love that about Jesus and his example he set for us. There are a ton of things I look for in leaders within the church. And number one is humility. There's stuff after that. But the number one, if you don't have humility, I don't care about the rest of your skill set. Don't care. In the early days when we were doing the setup and teardown, I don't know why I'm going to way back years today, but as we were selecting early leaders for the various ministries, the first test that a leader had to pass, and I didn't tell them this, is we would be sitting out here like after church service and everybody's doing their thing, and if they could possibly stand there while everybody's scurrying around, working around them, loading chairs, putting them on trailers and stuff, and not move a finger, I think, I'm not interested in you leading anything here. But if they were like, can we just do this while we're talking, and start doing stuff, I'm like, there we go. Then I'd look for other stuff. But that humility thing is huge. It's huge. If they were above serving in the nursery, like, I don't do children. If they were above anything, set up and tear down, all the stuff, then they were already marked off the list because humility is the number one thing Jesus was teaching, the servanthood humility that Jesus was getting into his disciples before going to the cross. This was a big lesson for them. Number 3, roll up your sleeves and get dirty. So the disciples are all standing around, picking their noses, staring at the walls. Jesus grabs a towel, gets down on his knees, and starts washing their feet. I mean, we all have excuses why we don't do things or why we don't think we should do things. Oh, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too this, I'm too that, I'm too important, too special. Jesus didn't use any of those cards. He could have said, he could have been like, you realize I'm about to die, right? I'm about to be nailed to a cross. I know you don't know that, but man, I don't want to wash feet. Can I just be to myself? Can someone just do this one last thing for me? He could have had that attitude, but he didn't. He was like, yeah, in a matter of hours, someone's going to come and they're going to arrest me and they're going to start beating me and then they're going to nail me to a cross and I'm going to die. Let me wash your feet. Whoa. He just did it. He just did it. No excuses, no reason not to. Even Judas, like, dude, you don't deserve to have your feet washed. Nope, sure didn't. He washed his feet. What good is it to see a need? Once you got the radar turned on, you go, boy, there's some needs around me. They're always there. What good is it to see a need and then do nothing about it? Other than to think, well, I hope someone takes care of that, What good is that? James puts it this way in James 2:15. If a brother or sister is without clothes or lacks daily food, one of you says to them, go in peace, stay warm, be well fed, but you don't give them what the body needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith, if it does not have works, is dead by itself. So James is like, don't just don't just acknowledge the need. Don't just have the radar on and say, yeah, boy, there's some serious needs around here. Do something. Roll up your sleeves, get busy, get engaged, and do something. Serve. So, we could talk forever about actual, church official service areas. We always have a ton of things available, right? We have a New Year's Eve party. It starts in a few minutes. And we will have literally hundreds of people coming into here, and the kids will be playing carnival games. They'll have fun, and we'll have a balloon drop. It'll be a lot of fun. We still have a few games that need someone to host. So, great opportunity for a sermon on service, right? what good timing. There are people who would like to have a ride to church periodically. We need people who will roll up their sleeves and give people rides to church. We have spots to fill in the nursery, just once a month. We need people to roll up their sleeves and say, you know what? That's not my favorite thing, but what a service. We really went, two each a time in each service in there. And these people. We'd love to have a female join our youth group team on Wednesday nights. Right, Scott? We've talked about that. We build up the youth group team.
I'll take all the help I can get.
Even a male? You'll take a male as well? Roll up your sleeves. Get busy. But service isn't just about the official. I could give you a list, and that's not my point to like guilt you into like, okay, we need you to do stuff. The point Jesus is really making here is that we're to be people of service wherever we are. We're servants at heart. So it could be people where you work that just need something, and you're like, well, I'm not going to do that. We're in competition for the same jobs. Just serve them. Just serve them. Put the towel around your waist and get down and wash their feet. Could be a neighbor who you're in competition with, and whatever the competition might be, or conflict might be, and maybe they have an area that they have need, and you have the ability to help. Serve. A few of us went to the International Conference on Missions back in November. It's a big conference with all these missions that show up, and they have a vendor area, and April and I were walking around the vendor area one day, and we saw this booth that said it was a ministry for orphan senior citizens. And we looked at each other like, what? I mean, I guess you could say I'm an orphan. Both my parents passed a long time ago. But that's not what it was talking about. And so we had to go talk. Well, what is this? Senior citizen orphans, what is this? They said, well, there are a lot of seniors out there who they may have family, but the family does not engage. You know, they just don't show up, they don't encourage, they don't communicate, they don't help, they don't do anything. So there's a lot of our senior population that are just sitting alone in their home or in their apartment, wherever it is they're at, and it gets lonely, and we just want to be a light in that darkness for them. And we're like, well, that's really, really cool. And we talked quite a while to this gal about this. But while we were talking, she said something that stuck out to both April and I as we walked away. This is the little phrase that stuck out. She said, if you have a pulse, you have a purpose. If you have a pulse, you have a purpose. God has a purpose for you. I'm not talking about some grand, he wants to be the king of the world. It's just like, no, he might be washing feet, right? But we all have a purpose that he has put us into a specific circle of people to serve. At work, at home, families, friends, whatever their circle, whatever their circles are, we have this purpose. And she talked about how they pair seniors up with different ministries, different things, different needs they know that are out there. And I can't remember, what the need was. I remember that somebody needed hats. Was it homeless, or I just made that jump to our situation? But they asked a bunch of seniors in one area once, well, anybody here like to crochet? They're like, oh, I love to crochet, but nobody wants my stuff. The grandkids don't want to wear the sweaters. They don't, nobody likes it. They said, well, would you make hats? They're like, yes. And they got this group of seniors crocheting hats, loving what they were doing, giving them a purpose, and they had a homeless community who needed hats. A win-win. And now the seniors were serving the homeless, and they were both really being served through that. So they do things like that. And it was so cool. And it just made me think, obviously, to our situation. We have a senior supper club where we invite seniors from around the community to come in once a month and have a meal and have a conversation and kind of pull them out of wherever they are, whatever they're doing, and say, hey, we just hang out with you. We just want you to know we see you, we love you, God loves you. Here's a good home-cooked meal and just conversation. There's no strings attached. We're not trying to get them to do anything and anything like that. And I thought, you know what, this next time we gather, I'm going to ask them, hey, and you like to crochet? Because we go out every 2 weeks to some homeless people that have very cold ears. And they would love, they're not going to be embarrassed that their grandma made it. They're going to be like, thank you. These guys are so appreciative when we go out. I mean, I've been thoroughly enjoying these conversations with the homeless folks that we have. But why not? Why not? You have a pulse. You have a purpose. I want you to do me a favor right now. I don't know how this works. I'm not a doctor. I have 2 children that could probably tell me how to do this. Go ahead and take your pulse. You don't have to make a count. Do you feel anything? Anything happen in there? I'm not sensitive enough to know. If you're alive right now, if you're breathing, you have a pulse. You've got a purpose for God. That purpose might be, I don't know, caring for babies in the nursery. We'll talk to Cheryl about that. It may be caring for the seniors who come here once a month on an evening for a meal. Talk to Brenda Smith. She's taken over leadership of that area. It could be serving folks coffee and donuts and whatever the fun stuff the cafe happens to be having that particular week. Talk to Jim Stocks. He coordinates that stuff. Maybe you have a passion about teaching the next generation. That's another whole, we've really got to help our kids. We've really got to build them up in the Lord, because there's a world out there. And if that's your passion, if that's God's calling you to do that, we'll talk to Renee about the junior worship, or Kim about Sunday school. We have places for you in that ministry. Providing, if your purpose might be providing supplies and food and conversations for homeless folks, talk to Richard, sitting back there at the sound booth right now. Go ahead and ask him about it. But set your timer. Because he's passionate about this. And tell him you've got 5 minutes. Go. I can say I tried. Check out our sign-up table that we have. If you can find it today. But we have out there usually some new opportunities and stuff all the time. If you have a pulse, point being, if you have a pulse, you have a purpose. Don't just stand there staring at the walls. Because that's our tendency. That's what we want to do. Grab a towel and get down and start washing feet. Roll up your sleeves and get busy.